Speaker Mike Johnson lays it out for you. I like to call this clip Google Gobble, one of us. And it's how they brought Mike Johnson into a private back room where the deep state started banging on a table, chanting Google Gobble, one of us, until he finally decided to be one of them.
When I was a member of the judiciary, I saw all the abuses of the FBI, the terrible abuses over and over and over, the hundreds of thousands of abuses. And then when I became speaker, I went to the SCIF and got the confidential briefing from sort of the other perspective on that to understand the necessity of Section 702 of FISA and how important it is for national security. And it gave me a different perspective. So I encourage all the members to go to the classified briefing and hear all that and see it so they can evaluate the situation for themselves. And I think some opinions have changed both ways, but that's part of the process. You got to be fully informed.
Have you been informed?
That's right. He had seen the FBI abuse the system and spy on innocent people, all that stuff. And then they brought him in the back room, roughed him up a little bit, and he said, I'm sorry, please stop beating me mercilessly, and then decided to side with them and vote in their favor.
Who's the SCIF?
And that was a joke, by the way.
Yeah, and I was kind of claiming what he said was out of context.
The SCIF is a confidential room.
Yeah, it's a room where you can look at classified stuff.
So what do you think he was told when he to change his mind?
Look, Mr. Johnson is not new to Congress. There is no question there was a lot of pressure put on. But as you played that clip, and we're talking about national security, for some reason, my thinking flashed to the border, where millions of people cross the border, and that's not a national security. That's a real national security issue. They can throw the card of national security on anything. And you put that out there, and right away people say, oh, well, national security. And we can't tell you why, right? It's a secret. We have to tease apart this deep state and separate them. And the only way to do that is transparency. The American people have a right to know why their government makes decisions. And too much of it is done in secret. Too much of it is done in the name of national security. And what about the security of the Fourth Amendment? What about the security the Constitution offers we Americans to be free from illegal search and seizure? To say that you can't take our liberties away unless the court approves of a search. That's all gone now. The government can do this willy-nilly. I know they have. I went through the bill today, Tim, and it has all these exceptions and this whole structured program. That's all baloney. They run it. They use the opening and do it any way they want, and they can go after anyone they want. And I maintain that the fact that FISA was able to pass and it's in for another 2 years is a disaster for this country, because it keeps us under the surveillance state that is against our democracy. Now, a Florida congresswoman put a motion to reconsider up, and you know what? They're going to have to vote again on it on Monday. And that'll be real interesting to see if people stay with their votes or whether they hear from their constituents who say, hey, we don't want the government spying. If you have to have a warrant to be able to reach into people's stuff.
Yeah, what's the best way for people to contact their congressman right now?
Well, call the House of Representatives.
They can Google their member of Congress and get the phone number.
While you were there, what's the most just annoying way to get bombarded by your constituents where you're like, fine, I'll listen to you?
Visiting their district offices.
When they're there?
No. You visit the district office of the member of Congress, because that's where the people are, where the rubber meets the road. You don't get back to Congress unless you pay attention to what's happening in your district. And while people make the trek to D.C., it's okay if you want to do that. Go to the district office. Ask to speak to the district director. Tell them you're a constituent and that you're concerned about the government having too much power, about the government being able to spy on Americans, be able to do it without a warrant. And you want some accountability, and you want their congressman or woman to stand for the Fourth Amendment of the United States Constitution. Because ultimately, this is what this is about. This is a full-on attack on the U.S. Constitution. And that Fourth Amendment, it was adopted in 1791. Okay? This isn't something new. they was put in there because the Brits, would go from house to house. They'd quarter their troops. They'd grab stuff. They'd take it out. No, we established the Bill of Rights to stop Americans from being beset by any type of government. And now the government, instead of serving the people, is attacking the people. And if you read the Declaration of Independence and you look at the statement that Jefferson wrote, it was a recitation of all of the abuses of the government at that time. And then it was the government of King George. But, King George might be long dead, but the abuses of what happens when a central government becomes more and ever more powerful has not ended. As a matter of fact, with the internet, with digital technology, oh my God! I mean, we have surpassed the Orwellian 1984, and we're into this brave new world that Huxley talked about, in which the government is the big brother.
Is it? And it's more than just, like Tim was saying, it's not just the U.S. government. There's greater economic powers at force that are manipulating people. I mean, you mentioned Citizens United earlier, which I believe, maybe you can explain it better, gives people, unlimited ability to what does it do exactly, Citizens United?
Well, what it said is that, essentially, since money equals free speech, Citizens United gave corporations the right to participate in the political process, to use their resources in structured ways through the creation of super PACs and such, and 501c4s, to be able to influence elections in a way they couldn't before. I mean, now it's the removal of any restraint on campaign financing has been a disaster for this country.
Can a foreign corporation invest?
No.
But can they?
But if they have a U.S. A subsidiary, sure.
Yeah.
So through this, there are ways in which foreign wealth is funneling money into the U.S. election system. But to clarify, when I said yes and he said no, his is literal, mine's figurative.
But I'm asking more of the broader, like, can they have a charity that's a United States charity that's owned by, a subsidiary, essentially. That's dirt.
And it's not just that, it's that there can be a charity that, or I should say, to clarify, there can be a charity where it's an American guy who started it, and then China puts $100 million in it. Mm-hmm. And then depending on what they do and how they do it.
501c3s are not permitted to be involved in politics at all, according to the IRS. But 501c4s, which have an educational component and a political action component, are permitted. Corporations can contribute to them. They can do it anonymously.
Yeah.
So... sorry to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
That it's more than just the United States government now. It feels like global corporations are just picking apart at our government.
Well, wait a minute. You're right. This is a very important topic, because when you look back at NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement, GATT, the General Agreement on Tariffs and Trade, the creation of the World Trade Organization, okay? And China trade. All of those trade agreements help to create corporate control, not just in America, but globally, okay? The corporations make the rules. And in many ways, that's when we began to see a destructive undermining of our rights as Americans, when, steel, automotive, aerospace, shipping industries started to go that were tied to people having a decent way of living in this country, and the connection with the declining American industrial base, or what I call the strategic industrial base, is directly related to the loss of individual freedoms, because you cannot have political freedom if you don't have economic freedom. And as people start to lose their economic position, their political rights are by definition going to be undermined. And that's what's happened. When I was in Congress, Boeing came into my office asking me to vote on China trade. I found out that the reason why they wanted to do that is they were willing to give to China the prototypes of the new aircraft that Boeing was developing. And China, of course, got that as part of the deal for entrance into the market. If you move your economy over, as we went to China, what are we importing? We're importing goods, but we're also importing values, okay? And so we become less free. We become less free. This is crazy. Workers' rights, human rights, out the door. So I'm a firm believer that we need to really review where we are as a nation with respect to upholding our basic liberties, because they have been lost over the last 30, 40 years.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.